Tonight's journey is not just a story, it's a test of how long your mind can survive the Arctic night. Before we step into this frozen world, make sure to like the video, subscribe to Doe's Dynasty, and drop a comment so this adventure reaches more night travelers like you. Hi guys. Tonight we ease into the slow, crunching hush of a frontier snowstorm. You stand outside a small log cabin as the wind pulls at your coat and sprinkles powdered ice across your eyelashes. Everything is moving and nothing is moving at the same time. The world is white, the world is loud, and the world is cold enough that you probably will not survive this without shelter, at least not for very long. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you want to make this a little cozier, go ahead and comment your location and the local time where you are listening. Now dim the lights. You push the door inward and step onto creaking floorboards. The moment it closes behind you, the cabin absorbs you like a hollow wooden lung. The storm still roars outside, but in here the sound is muffled, softened by logs fitted with imperfect care. You feel the temperature shift only slightly. This is not warmth, it is simply less cold, but in frontier terms that counts as progress. The first thing you notice is the shadowy outline of the hearth. It is barely glowing, just a few embers resting in what looks like a cradle of blackened stone. You kneel beside it, breathing in its earthy scent. The air is chilly enough that every breath fogs in front of your face, drifting lazily before it disappears. Your fingers hover over the faint heat, and you imagine all the pioneer families who crossed into nights like this one. No street lamps, no insulated walls, no thermostat, just timber, determination, and a kind of hope that feels almost reckless. A mainstream historical fact slips in as you remember that by the early 1800s, many cabins were built from green logs that shrank as they dried, which created cracks that whistled with freezing wind. The walls around you were never meant to be perfect. They were meant to be enough. You brush your hand along the nearest log and feel its ridges. The textures are sharp, almost splintery. There is no varnish here, only the scent of sap and old smoke. Pioneers stuffed gaps with whatever they had on hand. Moss, mud, straw, animal hair, anything to stop the cold from creeping in. You lean close and catch the faint mustastininess of old packing material. It is not comforting, but it is familiar to anyone who has spent time in cabins older than memory. You set your pack down and try to picture how you would sleep through a night like this. The answer comes slowly, drifting up from the room itself. First, you would listen. Listen to the wind wrapping around the cabin like a restless creature. Listen to the snow clumping on the roof in lazy thuds. Listen to the timbers answering each gust with their own chorus of groans. Frontier sleepers had no choice but to accept the noises that accompanied them. You are learning the same lesson now. A quirky little detail emerges as you notice a strip of old hide nailed over a gap near the door. Some pioneers believed certain animal skins block not only drafts but also malevolent winter spirits. Whether you believe that or not, the hide moves just enough to let you know the storm is still searching for a way in. Historians still argue whether such superstitions were rooted in European folklore or improvised frontier creativity, but the line between the two has always been blurry. You walk deeper into the cabin where shadows gather in the corners. The boards beneath you complain mildly but hold. Every sound is amplified because the space is so small. You imagine huddling here for warmth, settling into the kind of sleep that is not restful so much as strategic. If you drift too deeply, the fire dies. If the fire dies, the night becomes dangerous. Sleep becomes a negotiation with nature, one that must be continuously renewed. You take another slow breath. The cold air prickles your nostrils. It is not clean in the modern sense, but crisp and honest. Wood smoke clings to everything. You begin to understand why pioneers often carried that scent with them long after winter ended. It settled into hair, clothing, bedding, and memory. Sometimes it feels almost like another presence in the room, a familiar companion that follows you through the dark. You crouch beside the hearth again and tug your gloves off. Your fingers ache instantly. You press them near the shrinking embers, coaxing the faint warmth like someone trying to wake a sleeping animal. Pioneers often saved a single, glowing coal for morning so they would not need to start a fire from scratch. It makes you wonder how many times someone scraped through the ashes in a half-asleep haze, whispering a plea that at least one ember was still alive. You feel that plea echo quietly under your ribs. A sudden gust rattles the roof and sends a puff of snow dust swirling through a crack. It falls onto your sleeve, melting instantly. The storm outside is relentless. You feel small in comparison, but the smallness has a strange tranquility to it. When you know you cannot dominate nature, you start learning how to rest within it. That is the lesson the cabin is teaching you now. You study the bed frame against the far wall, little more than a wooden platform. The mattress is stuffed with dried grasses and feathers that poke through the fabric in stubborn little quills. It looks uncomfortable by modern standards. But pioneers often preferred this overthick feather beds because the grass is insulated better when temperatures dropped. You run your hand across the blanket. It is coarse, heavy, and smells faintly of wool and smoke. Everything inside this cabin has a scent that reminds you of the land outside. Even the shadows seem to smell like pine and frost. Another gust shakes the walls. Your shoulders relax because you are beginning to understand the rhythm. Storm, creak, silence, repeat. You let the sound lull you the way early settlers let it shape their breathing. A strange comfort settles in. The cabin may be small and imperfect, but it is not fragile. It has survived many winters before this one. You ease yourself onto the bed, feeling the uneven stuffing shift beneath you. Your body sinks just enough to feel held, but not enough to forget the structure beneath. You try to imagine drifting into sleep with the storm still raging. It would not be peaceful. It would be intentional. The kind of sleep where you accept that the world outside is wild and unpredictable. Yet you remain steady at its center. The fire pops gently. You hold on to that sound as your senses begin to soften. The cold still nips at your cheeks, but it no longer feels hostile. Just present. Just real. You close your eyes and listen again. Wind, wood, embers. Your breathing falls in line with the steady pulse of the storm. The night has begun. You open your eyes again, just enough to see the glow shifting across the hearth. The fire is still only a suggestion of warmth. A faint orange pulse buried beneath gray ash. You rise slowly, your joints stiff from the cold, and move toward it. This is the moment every pioneer knew well. The fragile window between comfort and discomfort. Between a tolerable night and a dangerous one. You crouch close and feel the chilly stones beneath your knees. The storm growls outside, but in here the world is focused on a handful of embers. You reach for the fire iron resting beside the stones. Its metal is icy against your fingers. You tap the ash lightly, until the embers reveal themselves, like tiny eyes blinking awake. A thin ribbon of smoke curls upward, carrying the familiar scent of wood and soot. There is a reason the hearth was the heart of every cabin. A mainstream historical fact settles into your thoughts as you remember reading that most early log cabins used open hearths, without proper dampers, which meant heat escaped easily but still provided the only reliable warmth. You pile a few thin twigs around the embers and blow gently. Your breath creates a soft whoosh that spreads heat across your cheeks. The twigs catch, snapping in tiny protests as flames lick upward. You add a thicker piece of wood than another. Each one is precious because pioneers measured firewood not in logs but in hours of survival. A stack of wood was as valuable as stored grain, maybe even more so on nights like this. You sit back on your heels and let the warmth slowly reach you. It is not much, but it is enough to keep your fingers from stiffening. The light grows, illuminating the rough surfaces of the cabin. Shadows flicker across the walls in restless patterns. You can imagine how settlers often drifted off watching these same shifting shapes, letting them blend into dreams where animals prowled or spirits wandered. A quirky tidbit you recall is that some pioneers believed a fire that cracked loudly was speaking to them, offering warnings or blessings depending on the tone. You listen now, curious, but the fire speaks in a low, steady murmur. The wind slams against the cabin again. Snow hisses across the roof. You shiver instinctively, even though the flames are beginning to build. You move your hands close, rubbing them slowly, absorbing whatever heat the fire is willing to share. You can feel the warmth radiating just far enough to thaw the tips of your fingers, but not far enough to reach your toes. Those remain numb inside your boots. You decide to pull another piece of wood from the small indoor stash. It is damp at one end, likely brought in too quickly from the storm before. You turn it over in your hands, feeling the rough grain. The weight of it. Historians still argue whether pioneers preferred to burn hardwoods at night for longevity or soft woods for quick heat. The answer probably changed with whatever the forest offered. Tonight, the wood you have burns unevenly but willingly enough. You ease it onto the flames. Smoke thickens, letting off a tangy scent that clings to the walls. A soft haze drifts through the cabin, making your eyes blink. For a moment, you imagine how many nights settlers spent coughing gently from smoke while pretending not to notice. Chimneys were often makeshift or poorly drafty. You inhale, feel the gritty edge of soot slide down your throat, and exhale slowly. You take a seat on the low stool near the hearth. The wood cacks beneath you. Your elbows rest on your knees. and you watch the flames climb in slow, determined spirals. You can almost sense the fire deciding whether to be generous tonight. The flames sway, gather strength, sway again. Little by little, warmth pushes into the cabin like a shy visitor testing the room. The storm continues pounding outside, but the fire offers a small victory. You can hear it cracking and shifting as it settles into a steady burn. That sound feels like reassurance, like a heartbeat returning to a tired body. You lean closer, letting the heat brush against your cheeks and take in the dance of light on the uneven stones. Fire tending was a nightly ritual for every pioneer household. No one simply went to bed and let nature run its course. You smile a little at the thought. Sleep was earned, not expected, and tending the fire required patience, timing, and a kind of quiet optimism. You can feel that optimism now, warming you more than the flames themselves. You stand and stretch, feeling the warmth pool around the hearth area. It creates a kind of invisible boundary, a small zone where your body can remember what comfort feels like. Beyond that line, the cabin remains cold, the air biting and still.